When Epic gives me the hotline bling emote, I'll do it. But until then, I'm on strike.
Boy, yes.
Fortnite was pitched by its developer Epic Games as Minecraft meets Left 4 Dead, which alone should make those of you watching this want to immediately stop to download the game for yourself.
Who the hell fought up here? Minecraft players just got in a big fight?
Before you leave though, let's take a look at the top 10 facts you might not know about Fortnite, the game that's quickly becoming the most popular one on the market right now. A joint venture between Epic Games and People Can Fly, Fortnite is so popular that its #1 streamer, Tyler Ninja Blevins, is suddenly the most popular streamer on platforms like Twitch.
And I just never stopped because I knew that if I just kept trying, I knew that at some point I would go from point A to point B.
So, let's delve into the top 10 facts about Fortnite. Some of these facts apply to the general game, while others are specifically about the Battle Royale version. Either way, let's do it. Copycats are coming.
And I'm dead. Dude, man, this guy just destroyed me.
Fortnite was announced way back in 2011, which is an eternity in video game time, and it could have been released much earlier, but when PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds was released and became popular,
this game is terrible! Game of the year? Game of the year! It's mind-blowing!
the developers behind Fortnite felt like they had lost their opportunity to strike first and decided to go back to the drawing board to ensure that their game didn't end up looking like a cheap copycat of Battlegrounds, a game that was extremely popular on its own merits and came out of the games as such, as its beta was one of the more popular PC games of its release year. Speaking of cheap copycats, the massive success of Fortnite has spawned a few upcoming copycats, with titles like The Darwin Project, Crazy Justice, and SOS, picking up where Fortnite is left off in the Battle Royale genre. Only time will tell whether or not those games will be able to knock either Fortnite or PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds from their thrones, but it's looking like the real winners will be the video game players, as competition is always a good thing for the consumer. And from the look of those games and the upcoming DLC and expansions that are coming for Fortnite, that's true here as well. Before we get any deeper into this little battle royale, take a second to hit that subscribe button and notification bell so you always find out when we get a new video up. It'll help keep us in fighting form. Let's get back into it. Fortnite is always changing.
Well, good night.
While some of the details in terms of what that free play model will look like are still unknown, what is safe to say is that Fortnite appears to be constantly looking for ways to alter the gameplay in order to keep its players engaged and rewarded. Originally, it was a basic every man for himself game, where people were pitted against one another in a gigantic map. Since its alpha and beta versions, the game has expanded to make changes to the game maps, loot boxes, and in-game dynamics. Basically put, the game is constantly evolving. After a 50v50 mode took the game by storm a while back, it was announced that a 5x20 mode was on the horizon too. That'll include new maps and hopefully weapon types, which should help Fortnite continue its reign as one of the top games through 2018 and into 2019. So if you've ever wanted to get into it, there's really no better time than right now. Battle Royale might have saved Fortnite.
The fact that it's free to play is super huge, and it's already across all of the platforms, your Xbox, PlayStation, and PC.
The early access to Fortnite let people pay to play the game starting in July of 2017. While that version got decent to good reviews, it didn't seem to be doing anything all that different from what a lot of other free-to-play games were doing at best, and at worst, it was called menu-heavy, repetitive, even boring. Luckily for the people behind Fortnite, the release for the Battle Royale expansion was only about 2 months behind the initial release of the early access version of the game. That opened up the game to its now super famous and popular multiplayer version, and the game's popularity exploded.
Surprise!
It's funny how things work out sometimes, but considering that the Battle Royale expansion was sort of an afterthought, it means that the future should be pretty bright now that the developers know where to spend their time and energy. Epic has a full separate development team working on Battle Royale.
Maybe by any chance you wanted to play Fortnite with me?
I'm okay.
The Battle Royale mode of Fortnite wasn't the initial or planned sole crux of the game. It was actually meant to mainly be a PvE, free-to-play game with a general multiplayer, like most games have had for years. However, with Battle Royale taking the entire world by storm seemingly overnight, Epic had to basically restructure its business and its teams to both handle the capacity of players who are playing the game at any given moment and also to ensure that they're fully taking advantage of their current popularity. So with that in mind, it was announced that Epic had split off a separate development team from the main Fortnite devs to solely focus on multiplayer. This team's mandate is to both work on improving existing gameplay and put together DLC, like new maps, new weapons and new characters, and new game modes. That means that Fortnite Battle Royale should consistently be releasing new content on a pretty regular basis for the next few years. The game used to be a lot creepier.
So you want to play Fortnite?
Do I know how to play Fortnite?
Do you want to play Fortnite?
No, I don't f with Fortnite.
Why not?
I just don't.
According to Fortnite's Wikipedia entry, the original game design aesthetic was actually a lot darker and creepier than what we ended up getting, at least in terms of what the enemies looked like. The design of the husks and other enemies were meant to be a lot less PG, it seems, at least according to the former design director of the game, Cliff Bleszinski. He stated that they initially wanted to make the game scarier, but changed their mind and went with a more cartoonish approach because they found that people were finding the game too grim, that the environment felt too exhaustive, and also because they felt like it just opened them up to even more competition than they already had, by having their game then compete with horror games like DayZ. That doesn't mean that the game still doesn't have some creepy baddies in it, just that they're not the type of creepy baddies that would make you not let your 10-year-old little brother or sister play. The game design used Pixar, Tim Burton, and Looney Tunes as inspiration.
It's not me.
Once they decided to move on from the more adult, scary aesthetic for the computer-generated and controlled characters, the developers had to find a new aesthetic to work with, and that's where they decided to really commit to the cartoonish nature of the graphics, by looking at some of the top cartoons in the history of the Western world. The first company these days you'd think of when you think of animation might be Pixar, which was a major influence. However, had you asked that question in the late 20th century, you would have gotten a totally different answer, with the Looney Tunes most likely being a top one for most children.
What's up, Doc? What's cooking? What's up, Doc?
And Tim Burton's creepy aesthetics in films like The Corpse Bride and The Nightmare Before Christmas also most likely getting placed on that list. Burton is maybe the best example of what ended up in the game, or at least the one that you most recognize of those three, as he found a way to make scary palatable for small kids. And that's the kind of balance that the people at Epic were clearly going for when they were developing Fortnite, especially in terms of its PvE gameplay. It almost had a PvP central target base building mode.
How are you, gentlemen? All your bases belong to us.
According to sources, while the game was in development, there was a player versus player mode where each side attempted to build up a base around a central target while trying to attack the opponent's target after breaking through their base. It isn't clear why that didn't make it into the final game, but it sounds like the best example of a weaponized Minecraft that we've heard so far. While that's not dissimilar to some of the objectives that other games have had in their multiplayer modes, like Capture the Flag in Halo for example, it takes the concept to another level by adding the construction of a base and the destruction of an enemy base. That sounds amazing, and you'd have to think that it'll be included in a DLC in the future, especially now that Epic has a full team working on stuff like that.
What, you got a team of monkeys working around the clock on this?
It has PlayerUnknown to thank.
And that's the only way to survive edging is to just laser everyone, and we killed so many people at the end.
We already mentioned the fact that Fortnite originally wasn't going to have a Battle Royale mode, but we haven't yet gotten into just how and why the Battle Royale mode was added. The fact that this mode was released about 2 months after the initial paid release of Fortnite implies that it was part of the plan all along, but it turns out that it was actually a bit of a spur-of-the-moment thing. Apparently, the idea first struck the team very close to the initial release in mid-2017. Following the release of PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds in March of 2017 and its rapid growth, Epic Games saw the chance to create a Battle Royale mode out of Fortnite. That means that the plan wasn't always to release Battle Royale, and that PlayerUnknown had a major influence on the game.
It's the first of its kind. I mean, like, these Battle Royales is kind of the first big one, really started with H1Z1 in terms of a tournament style.
While it may not be the best thing for PlayerUnknown, it seems to have benefited everyone else, so we should all thank our lucky stars that Epic was able to basically copy their gameplay openly and without restriction. Fortnite will be free, but it's still selling like hotcakes.
So do you want to like play Fortnite or something?
Okay.
You down?
Sure.
Like freemium mobile games, there are more PC and console games that are actually called free-to-play games because the developers have to compete with one another and end up making their money in in-game purchases to compensate for the typical $50 or $60 fee that they get up front. Fortnite is going to be one of those games too, as it hasn't fully launched yet, and once it does, it'll join the category of free-to-play games that are dominating the industry right now. Despite the fact that it'll eventually be free, over 500,000 people have purchased the game in some form since it became available.
What is the joy that this stuff possibly brings you?
It's just...
It's fun.
Yeah, it's fun.
There's the $40 version that comes with access to the game, as well as loot packs and cosmetic items, the $60 deluxe version, the $80 super deluxe version, and the $150 limited edition version that includes additional heroes, weapon packs, and more. Despite all of the changing release dates and the fact that people have to pay for a game that'll eventually be free, the hype behind it seems to be getting bigger and bigger. Fortnite is coming to your mobile device. With the success of Battle Royale seemingly coming out of nowhere, it shouldn't really surprise you to learn that Epic Games, the people behind the game, are sort of playing catch-up in terms of everything. As we've seen in this video, the initial plan wasn't for Fortnite to be a Battle Royale game, so we're really only now beginning to scratch the surface as to what the game is and what it'll be in the coming months and years. Part of that is porting the game to mobile phones, assuming you have an Android or iOS device. That's something that a lot of us older millennials could have only dreamed of when we were in school, and it's definitely only going to help Fortnite Battle Royale continue its explosive growth unabated. The beta version is actually available right now for iOS, and the Android version is on its way. Before heading into your next Battle Royale, take some time to hit that subscribe button and notification bell, so you always find out when we put up a new video. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you next time.
Alright guys, stream's over.